some of us know about that. And I might add, this is why you've heard me often pray for those who find themselves in death situations, in perilous situations, to use them as an opportunity to enjoy, I should say to find, and then enjoy the presence of Jesus Christ. And I find them as opportunities not to be frightened, but rather to be blessed. Scripture tells us repeatedly that it's in that particular moment that God is with us. So that's what I encourage people to this. And I have to say this, I don't talk about me too much, but I will say this. I've probably mentioned this before, but not too much. I know this very personally about death sentences and how we respond to it. And I'll tell you about this. It was years ago. I'd gone to the doctor for routine test, and then I got a call later on from the doctor. He says, well, this found something the matter with you, and okay. And then my doctor called me, and he said, well, David, he says you've got an incurable disease and terminal disease. And I said, oh. I wasn't the least bit frightened. And I said, well, tell me. And he told me what it was, or I should say what he thought it was, based on I'd had an MRI done. And the doctor, then I spoke with him, and I said, well, what does that mean? He says, well, he says, if it's gone any farther, developed any more, then you have 6 weeks to 6 months to live. I wasn't looking to hear that, but true story. So but I wasn't the least bit frightened. And I was really happy about that. I was talking with Dr. Junkin, who's a very good friend of mine, and years ago, as you well know, he has gone through some very, very serious cancer treatments. And I said, how'd you do when the doctor told you this is what you had? He said, he says, I always wondered how I would do, and he said, it didn't bother me in the bit. And I said, isn't that interesting? Didn't bother me either. It didn't bother me at all. It didn't frighten me in the least. And I can honestly remember something. I want to share this with you because this is very true. I was walking around the house. Brenda had gone to sleep, and it was a beautiful night, and the snow was on the ground, and I had been told this a few hours earlier. I was walking around, and I felt fine. And I remember looking outside the window, and it was just gorgeous, dark evening, cold and all that. And I remember saying to myself, I said, this is interesting. My name, I'm not the least bit frightened. My name is David. Jesus calls me by Jesus, the Good Shepherd, calls me by my name, David. And my name means beloved. I'm beloved of Christ. I'm beloved of God. And I was then, and I remain confident and comforted knowing that in my relationship with Jesus Christ, that's all that matters. Period. Whether I live or whether I die, nothing else matters. And so once you understand that Christ is with you, it takes away fear, it takes away doubt, it takes away worry, it takes away stress, it takes away all sorts of things. And I know some people would say, well, David, you're delusional, you made that up. No, I'm not delusional. No, I don't make things like this up. And yes, it doesn't bother me a bit. Christ can do whatever Christ wants to do with me. The world can do whatever it wants to do with me. It makes no difference to me because my life is grounded in Jesus Christ. Period. Now, if my value was based on whether I had money to travel, or whether I had gold, or whether I lived in I do live in a beautiful home, but an important home in an important location, or whether I had important friends, well, I do have important friends, I have you, but if my life were based on things and keeping up with the Joneses, and having to wear this, and having to look this way, then I would be miserable. But since I don't care about any of that, as you well know, the only thing that matters to me is my relationship with Christ. That's all that matters. It matters to me more than my relationship with my wife. My relationship with Christ defines my relationship with my wife and everyone else I love. Period. Now, what I'm getting at is when you look at this psalm, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, through the shadow of darkness, I'm not afraid of anything. Why? Because Christ is with me. So when we get these death notices, there's nothing to be afraid of. And people can say, well, that's easy for you to say. And the answer is, yes, it is. Yes, it is easy for me to say. Because I live in Jesus Christ. It's very easy for me to say. Period. We continue, I'm further convinced that Jesus doesn't so much protect us from the ebbs and flows of this mortal coil, as Mary Lou likes to say, when she refers to. I mean, I'm always amazed that people are surprised with life. I mean, if you're going to fly an airplane, what's going to happen sometime? Well, there's a thing called gravity, right, Andy? And what's going to happen sometimes? It's going to come down. If you're going to have blood that goes through your veins, what's going to happen sometime? Well, you might get a blood disease. If you're going to have a brain, what's going to happen sometimes? It's not going to work really well. This is part of being human. There's nothing, it's wonderful. It's just the way it is. It's just great. And Christ isn't going to protect us from being human beings. But he is going to be with us at all times, walking with us, talking to us, listening to our dreams, listening to our fears, listening to our hopes, walking beside us, but not going to change anything. This is where people get confused. You don't need to get confused. All you have to do is read the Bible. Jesus says in Matthew 5:45, God causes the sun to rise on the evil, and who, Billy? The good. Jesus goes on to say, and God sends rain on the righteous as well as the unrighteous. So it doesn't matter how good you are, how sweet you are, how precious you are, how faithful you are, how filled with prayers you are, or anything like that, you're going to be rained on. My favorite phrase, and I'm going to put it in my office, comes from, I won't tell you where it comes from, not that it matters, but there's a great phrase, and it goes like this. The one who made kittens put snakes in the grass. And once a human being understands that, then they can begin to have a happy life. There are no guarantees. This is just the way it is. The one who made kittens put snakes in the grass. The rain falls on the just as well as the unjust, as does the sun. And so what I'm getting at is that it's thrilling in my opinion that even though, as this psalm goes on, even though one might be surrounded by enemies, thou preparest a table before me. Where? In the presence of my friends? In the presence of everything that is going to be okay? In the presence of there's never any problem in the world? In the presence of only the righteous? In the presence of the godly? No. Where? In the presence of mine enemies. So life is just the way it is. And even in the presence of darkness, who's there? God.